Hello.
I just sent you a I just sent you a text. I've been trying to get on and I thought, well, maybe my connection is not good.
No, one of us has to let you in. And Mark has been really busy, and I didn't come in late. I came in later because he said he was coming in early, but he couldn't, and so I didn't. And so sometimes you have to wait a while.
Oh,
But we will let you in before class. So it's all good. It's all good.
so I just want to say at 5:30 I have to leave. So I do have my homework, but I've tried to massage my schedule and anyway. At
Well,
5:30 I'll quietly wave and disappear.
all right, things happen. So it's all good. Let me get this cat out of the way. Come over here. Come on. Out. Go on. Bye. See you later. Okay. All right. Let's see. I think I've got everybody here so far. Oops, I don't want that. Hello, everyone. Hi, Luann. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Liz. Hi, Sabrina. Hi, Lisa. Seeds. Hi, Sonia. Hi, Matthew. Feel like the Waltons. Okay. And bless Mark's heart, he's not here yet, so he might make it. We'll see. Luann. So I have like 6:58. We have 2 more minutes, okay? Hi, Liz. How you doing?
I am good. It usually takes 10 minutes to get my AirPods to connect correctly, and I'm in that 10 minutes right now.
It's all good. How you doing, Sonia?
I'm having problems with my laptop tonight. I don't know what the deal is. It's been saying it's getting ready for about 30 minutes, and I don't know what's going on with it. So that's how come I had to jump on my phone.
Yeah, sometimes it's a mystery.
Well, if you see me squinting, it's because I can't see out of my bifocals very well.
Okay. Sometimes it's just a mystery. So we are glad we have this option in this time, you know.
Jennifer's gonna be a little late. She's in the airport right now.
Okay. Here he comes. Hey, Mark.
Good evening. Good evening.
Did
I
you
miss
get a
the metaphor of the day yet?
Did you have a nap yet?
I've been working on getting Madison County laptops ready.
Oh, brother. How
So
many do you have to carry over there tomorrow?
Friday 15. They'll still be updating tomorrow. So
Okay.
I'm doing some digital literacy work in a community that just got gigabit high-speed internet. And many people in this rural community center don't have a Gmail, don't have an email account.
My
So
goodness.
they're taking a big step.
Yes, they are. What kind of laptops are these? Like the ones you did before at the rescue mission?
These are Hewlett Packard Microsoft 11 computers.
Wow.
So they also get to step into the Microsoft world. So for those of you that understand my chuckles, some of us live in an Apple world, some of us live in a Microsoft world, some of us live in a Google world, and some of us are hybrids.
Yes, that's right. All right. Well, it is 7:01. So welcome to class number 5. And tonight we're going to be covering a lot of real estate, content real estate in terms of hi. Hello, Matthew, how are you doing? So we're going to be talking about holistic nursing and what are the major provisions or verbs in your Nurse Practice Act? What's the ANA Code of Ethics? What's your intuition type? Who's on your healing team? A little bit more about moral injury and nurse shortage and Phoenix Phoenix nurses. And then we're going to talk about, we are going to get into how to advocate for a hospitalized patient. So we have a lot to do. So first, let's do our homework. So our homework was, what is the CT scan of the abdomen with contrast number for your selected hospital? Luann, should we pick on you first since you have to hit the trail? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'll be here for the majority of the class. I just didn't want to disappear without. So, first I want to say I found this very interesting because I wanted to do 3 hospitals to compare. These are 3 hospitals that I or my family may go to. And I found the one that's closest to me had a very difficult website to navigate, kind of sneaky. And it took me about, I would say, half an hour. Anyway, and then the other 2 were relatively easy. So the first one is Stanford University, that's in San Francisco, and that is a trend-setting hospital for research and care. And so CT of abdomen with contrast, they did not allow me to check the price. Now this is without insurance. They add the pelvis. It was abdomen and pelvis. So I took that with contrast. That was $7,349. So that's in San Francisco. Now, if we go to Sacramento, oh, by the way, my next choice was UC Davis University Hospital. They're a level 1 trauma center. Impossible website or a cost estimator. Impossible. So what I would do is call the nurse advocate or case manager and say, hey, do you have a better link? So the next choice for Sacramento, I went to Sutter Health, Sacramento, which is also a level 1, and their CT of the abdomen and pelvis, so it's a straight across comparison with contrast, was $6,983.
Ooh, okay.
So then I thought, okay, when I'm in Wyoming, if I had an issue, if it was a trauma case or there was something really wrong, I would go to my choice. There's 3 up there, but my first choice would be Salt Lake University Hospital, and their CT of the abdomen with contrast, perfect website, easy, and you could just put in exactly what you wanted. $3,596. Good Lord.
Well, that's cheaper than the other 2 prices you quoted.
Oh my gosh, right?
Now you're getting down to where we think it ought to be, okay? Okay,
Good
well,
grief.
thank you, Luann. Awesome.
Welcome.
All right, what about you, Lisa Nowicki? What about you?
Okay, there we go. So I went to the hospital where I work, and they too had a difficult website to navigate. They didn't even, I had to sign in and put in my insurance number. So I have to say I did not do that. I just looked around elsewhere. They had a list of maybe about 25 types of imaging you could get done. And CT of the abdomen with contrast was not one of them. They had a thoracic spine CT, a PET scan with CT. At any rate, they offered some ranges for prices with these. But I couldn't get into the hospital where I work to find out exactly what they charge. However, they do have imaging centers around. And I guess you want to come to Florida if you don't have insurance, because it's way cheaper than what yours was, Luann. Florida average was 255 to 1,106. And then the actual image, Orlando Health Imaging Center in Lake Mary was 310. And I put without insurance. So these are the prices I got.
Was that CT of the abdomen with contrast?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just can't believe there's such a price difference.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay,
Liz, what about you?
the first one I put in was because I go to Banner Health here in Loveland, and they actually only offer the price estimate for 6 different things. So I couldn't look it up because it's not one of them, which is very rude. I thought we had the transparency in coverage, and there were the 500 codes that you have to be able to have, whatever. So then I went and looked up Medical Center of the Rockies, which is affiliated with the University of Colorado. We've got 5 major health systems up here, and that is one of them. And for no insurance, the total cost is $3,486, but they give you an $872 discount. So it ends up costing $2,615 for CT abdomen with contrast.
That's pretty reasonable. Okay,
Unless you don't have insurance.
right.
But
Sure.
yes, I like that 200 in Florida. Holy heck.
That's totally awesome. Thank you. Okay, Sabrina, what about you?
I would love to say I have a whole bunch of hospitals to choose from, but we have one hospital and I'm lucky to have one hospital. So, I looked up that one hospital and they did, allow me to be specific about it. And so a CT of abdomen with contrast was $1,717.
Wow. It's 100. Wow, it's unbelievable. I can't get over how cheap these are. It's awesome. Thank you. Okay, Lisa Seeds, what about you?
Well, Jennifer is on my phone listening in, just so you know. She's
Oh.
still trying to make it through the airport.
That's all right.
But in any case, both of us kind of looked at some of the same hospitals because in our area, it's either Bon Secours or HCA. And then when I looked at the Bon Secours, which is our home website, we are a not-for-profit hospital. And if you don't have insurance, they knock off some money. So by the time it gets back to the person, it's $2,504. But after a $1,669 discount, which means it was originally $4,173. Now, that said, HCA said it was anywhere between 4,263 and 8,230, all depending on who read it, when it was read, how it was read, and where you were when it was read.
Terrible.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Thank you. Gosh, bummer. Okay. All right, Miss Sonia, what about you over there in Oklahoma?
All right, so I checked out the local hospital that's probably about two miles away from my clinic. And for a CT abdomen with contrast, it was $950 for self-pay.
Wow.
And then I tried to look up a couple of our tribal hospitals and I couldn't get access to anything.
Okay. Well, thanks for trying. Okay, and Matthew, last but not least.
So, yeah, I think it's so amazing how different these places can be.
Yeah.
I use St. Vincent's because that's where I'm practicing in Santa Fe right now. It just sent me all over the place. They own about 15 hospitals, so it like threw me to Tennessee and it threw me to California. And I finally got the information, but I didn't get it through using their websites by using ChatGPT.
Oh,
And it told me exactly what self-pay at St. Vincent's would be, and it said between 428,709, and the average person last year paid $614. And I
Oh.
couldn't believe it. I got that information from ChatGPT and I couldn't get it through their websites.
That's totally incredible, really.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's quite an unbelievable journey when you ask these prices all over the country. And it wonder even, I had some students say they were going to fly to somewhere, like we would fly to Santa Fe and have a CT of the abdomen with contrast and come back here. You know, our CTs run, so we have an HCA hospital and ours run around between 2,600 and 4,000 something. So anyway, it makes you wonder if you should fly other places, you know? My
And you know,
goodness.
the cost of living in Santa Fe is really high. We have a lot of affluent people here.
Yeah,
Everything's skewed here. And yet when you start asking, yeah, some things are not what you'd expect. Come
maybe,
to Santa Fe, have some green chili and get your CT done.
yeah, no kidding. Go down to Florida and lay on the beach and have an exam down there. No
Exactly.
kidding. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you all for your studious homework. Thank you so much. Okay.
Tara, do you
Yes.
think there's a correlation overall with a for-profit hospital being more expensive than a nonprofit?
It
General?
appears that way. I don't like when everyone was talking, when they identified HCA, those were definitely higher. But I don't know if you're Luann, if your hospitals are all not for profit or what, I don't know. But you had some very expensive CT scans. So
I think California, and this is in hospital, no insurance. And you know, so they're emergent. This is emergent pricing. You were to go in the ER, which is, I mean, if you were really sick or you were a trauma case, you wouldn't be flying to another part of the country to get a film. So anyway,
well, anyway, it's a big learning experience. So thank you all. This is what we usually find is that prices vary all over the place. So it does behoove us all to go shopping. So, and this is good, you know, we need to be good shoppers. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start out with, that's weird right there. We're going to start out by looking at not advocating for hospitals. Here comes Jennifer. Let me get this out of here. We're going to get this out of here for a minute. And we're going to be doing that the second hour. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we are at the first hour, and this is going to be spending time about holistic nursing and patient advocates and a little bit more about moral injury and Phoenix nurses and 5 types of intuition, who's on your healing team. And I love this quote by Mother Teresa, which is, "Don't wait for leaders, do it alone, person to person."
For
And
Orlando, doors are closing in less than 3 minutes. Final call, all passengers received do need to be on board at this time.
but she might want to mute herself. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and start, but I think this is a great quote for any of us in private practice as holistic RN patient advocates. So just another review that we started out in the first day of class, second day of class, talking about what is an advocate. And it's a person who stands up or calls out and speaks on behalf of a person. And we all know that if you don't speak up, someone may or will be making the decision for you. And we know that the tools of the advocate are words. So what is holistic nursing? this is defined by the American Holistic Nurse Association. Let me ask, how many of you are AHNA members? It's hard. Can you put, if you're a American Holistic Nurse Association member, will you put that in the chat so I can see that? So it's defined as all nursing practice that has healing the whole person as its goal, and it can be practiced in any setting, in a hospital and hospice anywhere. And some other things about holistic nursing. Let's see, I have to look at the chat. So we have Matthew and Lisa and Liz and Jennifer. Oh, Jennifer says no. And Sonia. Okay, that's kind of good to know. Who's the members? So other things that holistic nurses use are imagery and visualization and relaxation and deep breathing techniques and stress management and aromatherapy and other energy therapies are used in patients in hospitals and for our own private practice. And we know that being part of a holistic nurse helps people coordinate their care and navigate the complexities that exist between all the healthcare and healing professions. And it plays a major role in coordinating services and bringing back caring and healing. So I had to create my own holistic nursing statement when I submitted this last go round of 40.5 hours to the American Holistic Nurse Association. So I've always just said that it's approach I use with patients or families or friends or colleagues, people I love, from a mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, sociological, environmental, and financial perspective that creates a caring and loving presence where healing can take place. And some people say, well, Karen, why do you have sociological in there? And I have that in there because of all the work that is going on in terms of people's family systems. And there's a lot of us, we're going to be doing an exercise in this class later on about our ACEs scores, but those family systems can be quite toxic. So now I've used this so much that I can just rattle off all the realms. And me personally, I do not want to be known just or treated like I'm just a disease process. I want a physician or caregivers to treat me like I'm a whole person. So the history of RN patient advocacy in the US, just to quickly go through this, that the RN patient advocate in private practice is pretty darn new in the last 15 years. And when you add the word holistic to RN patient advocate, it's even newer and it's very hard to find literature about it. And the role of holistic nurse coaches have been found a lot more because people like Dr. Linda Bark, who spoke to us on the second day of class, has been in private practice with Wisdom of the Whole Nurse Coaching Academy for at least 20 years. And we also know that there are multiple citations in the literature that nurses as entrepreneurs can really transform healthcare. And then these are the benefits down at the bottom of nurse entrepreneurs about ability to follow ideas and make contributions to patients and families. And it's a place to have independent decision making. And we have, I think we can do better with self-care skills when we're in independent practice. And the one that resonates for me down here is we have the authority to use personal style and creativity to implement ideas without constraints of large organizations. Being part of tertiary care referral hospitals that were very bureaucratic, I really wanted to be more free in my practice to implement strategies and healing to patients individually without going through a lot of bureaucracy. So what is a holistic RN patient advocate? So we know that patients and families use our healthcare system and they're frustrated and they're angry and they need and want to have their questions asked and they're unable to get them asked. And then we know I know personally that holistic orientation advocates in private practice has accelerated our healthcare system in terms of it's very difficult to negotiate. It's less integrated, very complex and stressful. So these 4 things down here under what differentiates a holistic orientation advocate, and the reason I put these in here is now there are people that are going into private practice as patient advocates. Otherwise, there's a national certification called Board Certified Patient Advocate, BCPA, and sometimes they don't have clinical experience, and sometimes they don't have any clinical education. So what sets us apart is our education, our clinical licensure, our clinical experience, and we have to adhere to national, state, and local standards of care, which is validated by the inclusion of the word advocacy in many nurse practice acts. So I just want to say that to you all. And then lastly, we just already talked about those key things about the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological, and sociological, environmental, and financial aspects of the whole person. That's one of my big things that stick in my craw is that physicians and other healthcare providers do not tell or ask a patient if they can afford having 30 medications or 15 medications. They do not ask, can you possibly financially keep up with this? So I'm going to change channels just for a little bit, and we're going to talk about your Nurse Practice Act. So in my state, I think we are the only second state in the country. We were the only state for years that had a board elected nursing board of nursing by nurses only. So we are not, our board of nursing is not appointed by the governor or other elected officials. So hence it becomes very strict and quite rigid, and sometimes it's overwhelming. So this is a picture of me at this place called Perry, the Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute in Pisgah Forest, way out in the woods. And that is one of their telescopes. This used to be a CIA location back in the 50s, and now it's been turned over to track commercial satellites and other things. But it feels like our Nurse Practice Act is pretty big, and sometimes it's overwhelming. But we just need to check on our Practice Act and see what that works like. So in our state, every registered nurse is held accountable to the provisions of these 4 things: the North Carolina Nurse Practice Act, the American Association of Nursing Code of Ethics, and the American Hospital Association's or other healthcare agency patient bill of rights. So when nurses have gotten in trouble with their licensures, you all probably know this, that there is a patient bill of rights somewhere on the wall of your healthcare organization. If you're practicing in that healthcare organization, it behooves you to know what they are. And then the last thing we are held accountable for are the standards of care for our own nursing discipline that might be dictated by different professional organizations we belong to, such as the Critical Care Nurse Association or the Orthopedic Nurse Association, or et cetera, et cetera. So if we drill down just a little bit, I'm not going to go through all these, but in North Carolina, we have 10 provisions, and they all start with a verb. But if you remember from college and high school, when you add an ing to a verb, it becomes a gerund. So we have nothing but gerunds in our Nurse Practice Act: assessing, recording, reporting, planning, providing, reporting, providing maintenance of safe and effective care. So it makes it kind of easy for you to go through the nursing process in your mind and just add an ing to it. So these I think are easy to find. And then in the ANA Code of Ethics in North Carolina, a registered nurse is also accountable for the American Nurse Association Code of Ethics, and there's 9 of those provisions. And I just highlighted some of these terms, but practices with compassion and respect for dignity. Number 2, primary commitment to patient. Number 3, advocates for patient safety. Number 4, responsible, accountable for individual nurse practice. Number 5, we are preserving integrity and safety of the patient. Number 6, we are establishing and maintaining improving healthcare environments. Number 7, participates in the advancement of the profession. Number 8, collaborates with others. And number 9, we are part of associations. And then I'm not going to go over this like I did the ANA Code of Ethics, but this is an example of the American Hospital Association Patient Bill of Rights. And if you can see this, it's very, very similar to the ANA Code of Ethics. So I just thought I'd show you that. And there's something in here about we have the right to review our records for medical care, and we have a right to expect reasonable response to our requests. And we have a right to ask if our hospital or healthcare has other business relationships. This is kind of odd because now we have HCA Hospital, which has 182 for-profit hospitals in the United States, and they make billions of dollars. And then number 11, the patient has expect reasonable continuity of care. So just to tell you a little bit about that. I've gone back to revisit moral injury quickly because we're going to be talking more about nurses that get into trouble. And just to be brief, we said originally that it was a deep soul wound that pierces a person's identity, sense of morality and relationship to society. And we also said that, we already said that, and it has a profound impact on how we work. This is some of the physician literature. And then the other quote here is it's routine, incessant betrayals of patient care and trust, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. So that's what happens to nurses when they're repeatedly exposed to short staffing. I wanted to show you this headline that was on the front page of our local newspaper. This was in 2022. This travel nurse was out in the parking lot of a healthcare facility, and what you can't see very well, these are all her name badges from different facilities she's worked in. And she had just finished a 13-week contract at Mission, and she had earned $3,700 per week. So, that's probably $12,000, $14,000 for a month. And approximately 75% of nurses on all our floors at Mission were travelers. That's right, 75%. There are 1,800 nurses at Mission Hospital. And imagine that 75% of them are travelers. So is that about 12 or 1,400 nurses? And let's see. And then it said down here, every shift there are more travelers than permanent staff. That's the way it is. And this was an article written on January 31st, 2022. So it's pretty depressing here because we have a horrific hospital and they can't keep nurses because they treat them so poorly. And I think I mentioned originally that Phoenix nurses are those people that have lost their licenses due to horrific working conditions where they didn't ask for help, or they were maybe having extreme stress in their personal life and it intersected with their work life, and they've been historically overwhelmed and exhausted. And so I call them Phoenix nurses because they go through fire by losing their job, then their license. Then in North Carolina, you can't practice as a CNA. You have to go work at McDonald's or somewhere else. So it's a pretty rugged time. And then I was trying to figure out this beautiful figure of a phoenix bird. And of course, Harry Potter, Fox is the phoenix in Harry Potter. And so I had this person in downtown Brevard who painted this, which kind of signifies the Phoenix nurse with the broken heart and the Florence Nightingale lamp and the heart. And it was pictured many kinds of other people besides us. And to review that we get into trouble when we don't ask for help, or we violate our Nurse Practice Act, or we violate the ANA Code of Ethics in North Carolina, or we falsify our documentation, or we get these awful, well, now everything is pretty computerized, so we don't have as difficult time reading physician orders, but then again, now there's absence of physician orders, or we don't ask for help from a supervisor. And we've even had nurses who use Facebook and they take horrific pictures of themselves and talk about taking care of an extremely horrifically obese patient. And then, of course, they post it, and then, of course, it's time-stamped. So then the family goes and figures out that they're talking about their patient, family member, and they lose their licenses over that because they have invaded somebody's privacy and confidentiality. So we know that short staffing and being unfamiliar with policies and procedures and not knowing how to use an electronic medical record. I was visiting a patient at Mission Hospital not too long ago, and the patient wanted to see what her appliance was that the surgeon had put in in her broken pelvis, femur. And the nurse, I said, can you please bring the computer on wheels into the room? And the nurse said, I'd say, I want to see the op note. And she said, I'm sorry, I don't know how to use it. So we had to get another nurse to bring it in so she could figure out how to use it. In North Carolina, when you lose your license, you have to write a paper to the Board of Nursing. And the paper is how I violated the North Carolina Board of Nursing, Nurse Practice Act, and what are my plans for strengthening my ethical legal decision-making course. So how did that happen? So you have to talk about what your education was, what was your practice, and what happened on the day or the night that all this happened. And then after you identify that, then you have to come up with a plan of how you are going to never let this happen again. So a lot of nurses write about they're stressed out beyond all recognition, and they probably need to work on some stress management skills. In nurse coaching, the way I use coaching skills to talk with Phoenix nurses, just to actively listen. And if you remember when Linda's was here, she said the first question she asked her clients are, how can I help you, or what would you like to focus on? And then we paraphrase everything they say. And then in the realm of the archaic, I say, who is in your tribe? Who is it that's going to support you as you go through this? And then my intuition and paying attention to his or her body language and listening and paying attention to what's happening between us. And then there's mythical. What are the student stories? What's the nurse's stories? How did they get into this issue? And then the mental shame. Sometimes I say to nurses on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 which is the worst shame you've ever had. What is your shame score? So that's pretty powerful. And then the integrals, pulling it all together. So we already talked about that. So what I'm going to do is stop for a minute. And I want you all, you're going to do some breakout groups into twos. And so I want to ask you, what big mistake has changed your life, and how did you come back from that mistake as a nurse? So that's what we're going to do. And I think what we'll do, let's see, Luann, you're here till 7:30, but it's 5:30. How much more time do you have? 1 hour?
I have 1 hour.
Okay. So let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we'll do 4 breakout groups of 2. And your
Yeah.
little assignment is to talk about an error
Yeah.
that you made. How did it make you feel? What happened to you? How has it changed your life? So we're going to share that for about, let's see, Mark, was it 10 minutes or 15? I think 10 was too quickly because both people have to share. Does 15
No.
minutes sound okay, or 10?
No,
Do you think 10 minutes is adequate for you both to share? Okay. So I'm going to divide you into 2s. And so that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and, so Mark, I don't think I have that on my screen. Let's see. Do you have it on yours? I should have it. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't have I don't have host privileges, so I don't.
Okay, so I'm looking. I don't see breakout groups on here. Oh, wait, let's see if it's under more. Nope. So let's see. I sure don't. Very strange. Let's go to apps. Don't see it. So I'll have to investigate that because we're going to have some other breakout groups. So maybe we'll just do it in a group and see if anybody feels like sharing about an error that happened to you in your life and how it might have changed you, if you feel comfortable sharing that.
I've been trying to unmute myself. Okay, it's Matthew. So I don't know if it was an error. I can't even think of it as an error. I haven't made a med error yet that I know. You know, that was always terrifying to me through my whole career as a nurse, med errors. I was so afraid. And now as a nurse practitioner, it's writing a wrong error or something like that. But so far, I don't have any of that. The biggest change for me was I made a mistake in mouthing off to a medical director. And it changed the whole course of my life. And when we all started this class, I was kind of at the tail end of that change, but I had a kind of a corrupt medical director at a prison in another city in New Mexico, and I kind of challenged him on it. And it was someone who had a great stake in being where they were. And I just said I would not or could not work this way, and I'd like to have this mediated. You know, I really needed to talk about some things. Instead of, so the action that happened after that was things just got very quiet where I worked, and the state and a representative for the company I was working with for the prison came and did a closed door meeting with me, and they said, "This is your mediation." I said, "I thought we were going to mediate." He said, "This is what it looks like. We're moving you. We're moving you to a different place." They moved me from France to Santa Fe, and they said, "You're going to be the doctor at the Santa Fe prison. That's your choice." And I moved, and I just had to swallow that pill. And so when I first met you all, I'd already signed up for this class during this transition too, but you know, I've been processing this whole thing about what a horrible experience. You know, am I heading in for a lawsuit? You know, I have a huge lawsuit against the state and this company, but you know, is it really worth going? I mean, I'm just so alone in this. And so it was maybe an error in one way, but what it did do is it put in a course of events that kept me on a moral path and led me out of the prison and led me straight into a beautiful practice I'm sitting in now, and just recreating my life and coming back out of just a very toxic environment into the absolute opposite. That's the biggest error I've made so far. And, you know, in some ways, I just can't believe we make mistakes, you know, because, but I love what you're doing right now, because if I had made a med error and if I had fessed up to it, I think it would have made the same preponderance of movement to the right course too. So
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. Great.
feels good to get it off my chest. I haven't
Awesome.
talked about to anybody. So
Wonderful. Thank you for letting us hear that from you. Thank you. Anybody else want to share something? Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Luann.
Well, Matthew, I can relate to kind of spouting off at the wrong time with the wrong person at the wrong place. So I've had 3 instances of having to challenge either a physician or, you know, superior. So I'll give you one. Was in the PACU. And I don't know how many people here have worked in surgery, but so, you know, the anesthesiologist hands off your case and then promptly goes back into, you know, another surgical case. So I had a woman who was old, cold, and narked, and that means that she's not waking up. And I could not get the anesthesiologist. I went through the whole regime, as I would say, to wake this woman up. I realized what was the problem, and she needed Narcan, and the anesthesiologist wouldn't give me the order for Narcan. So, and I had the respiratory therapist. So you use all of your backup, like to confirm maybe somebody else can intervene or has a different angle that can work with the anesthesiologist. No go. So I wasn't getting anywhere. So I decided to do a no-no, which was take the patient to ICU when she wasn't really ready to go. She didn't meet the criteria for discharge to even ICU. But I knew that as soon as I took the patient there, that the nurse would call the ER doctor and she would be intubated and probably get Narcan and get all the things that she needed. And so I did that. And when I came back to the department, my colleagues were surprised, and I said, I can bet you in 5 minutes you're going to hear an overhead page from the ER doctor. And sure enough, that happened. And so that was a big stink, and it caused a root cause analysis, big blah, blah, blah. And so we went through it. The head of anesthesiology was there, not the anesthesiologist that was unresponsive to me. And the head of anesthesiologist said that I was correct and that that was a failure for anesthesia. And I was shocked, but that was standing up for the patient, right? If I'm probably going to get filleted for this, but I knew that I could force the care for the patient by doing this, cutting, you know, just going to another department. The head of the anesthesiology said that I needed that order, that I'd done everything that I needed, and that he felt that at least in some circles of anesthesiologists, having to give large orders of Narcan is an admission of failure, meaning they didn't do their job in the OR before they brought the patient out. So they don't want to do that. Anyway, very interesting. It's like going down the rabbit hole and hoping you come out on the other side.
Wow. Thank you, Luann. Pretty powerful. Anybody else want to share a mistake that you've made?
I will. This is Lisa.
Thank you,
Jeez.
Lisa. Thank you.
So mine's not nearly as horrific as theirs is, but it still plays to the fact that my concerns for where our liabilities are. So I had a HIPAA violation early in my career because I did not tell the address, but I confirmed the address of a person that would get a subpoena for a child endangerment issue. And I would probably do it again. But the thing is they said that I did not have the authority or the right to confirm an address for the subpoena. So the attorney for the hospital decided that they needed to talk to me and threaten me and tell me that I had done everything wrong, that I was not allowed to do that, even though I didn't actually give out the address. All I did was confirm it. And I had to take multiple HIPAA classes because they considered a violation. But in retrospect, I don't know that I would have done anything different because this child was being sexually molested. And I had a very hard time with that. Personal experiences being what they are sometimes is definitely a factor in how we deal with things. But I definitely had to go through a lot of classes. Again, I don't think I would have handled it any differently if it was to come up again. And I probably would not have my license if it does. Just because of the way I feel about the way children and women in particular are abused, and it goes by the wayside because our hands are tied.
Oh, ooh. Thank you, Lisa. Ooh. Thank you.
Seth, just to make you smile after sharing all that, I want you to know one time I had to take a HIPAA class because I was confirming a patient address and they gave me their street and number, said they were in San Francisco and gave me the zip code. And I did not ask them if they meant San Francisco, California. And therefore they said that I did not verify the state, and the company I worked for made me take a HIPAA class. So I just want you to know, like, I understand. And everybody's like, oh yeah, HIPAA. I'm like, okay, okay. So that was just to make you smile after having to share that.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share a story?
I can share a story. Okay, so I have been written up multiple times because of my advocating for my patients. As I said, I work for my tribal hospital, and we have a lot of non-natives that work in the facility that are in the upper management positions, and trying to advocate for our patients is very difficult because for some reason they feel threatened by us because we understand the culture and the history. And so my challenge was with what is she, a nuke med technician, whenever I was a radiology nurse. And we were doing cardiac CTAs at the time. And so I was the cardiac nurse when we did our procedures. And there was a situation with the patient. I had to call the cardiologist to confirm if he wanted to change the medication dosage or whatever. And, I did. And he said yes. So we went on with the procedure with the medication change order. Well, then I got called into the office by my manager, who was the nuke med technician. And she told me that I did not need to call the doctor directly. The way we were going to do it was, because she was my superior, that I would go to her and she would call the doctor and get the order and then give the order back to me. And I kept explaining to her that was illegal. We cannot do that. I said that would be any different than if I just took a direct order from a stranger out in the street. We can't do that. And so she wanted to write me up for being insubordinate, and I refused to sign it. So I go to risk management because I'm like, okay, I need somebody to back me up on this. And risk management did. And then, it was just like silently put away because they didn't ever do anything to me because she didn't get to write me up for it, but she did write me up for something else. And it was just, I guess, because of my tone I stood my ground with her, and she said she didn't like my tone, the way I spoke to her, but I said, this is my patient. And yeah, it was just a huge mess. And towards the end, and just like Matthew, um, instead of addressing what the problem is, they just want to move you because they want to keep you silent. They don't want you advocating for the patients. And so I'd been moved around like 3 or 4 times in my own tribal hospital, because that's what we would do, is just, advocate for the patients. And so then you're listed as a troublemaker or, whatever, but I'm just like, no, I'm advocating for my patient. So I don't ever feel bad about any of it. And I actually kind of brag about how many times I've been written up. It's something to be proud of. But I still have copies of all of them too. So I've been written up for bizarre things, for talking in the hallway to someone else in a different department. I mean, just strange things. But anyway, but thank you all for sharing your stories.
It's good. Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Anybody else want to share their story? Anything else? I'll end the storytelling by saying, in 2002, I left our hospital because it was so bureaucratic, and I was recruited to be a director of a rehabilitation hospital, a medical rehabilitation hospital. And after about 8 months or 9 months, that hospital closed because Medicare stopped paying 100% for medical illnesses. They started only paying 75%. So myself and 62 staff members all lost our jobs. We had to find somewhere else. In the history of my world, I have never, ever been part of a unit for any kind of healthcare that's closed. I can't imagine. So I was feeling a little desperate and scared. And I was a single mother of my daughter. And so a friend of mine said, Karen, there's a job where you can be a practice administrator of a vascular surgery, pain management, interventional radiology practice. And this is our next exercise is going to be talking to you about what is your intuition style. So I did not listen to my intuition at all. And I learned that I was going to report to 13 physicians at the same time. And I did, and I thought I was going to go insane. And I found out that they were doing all kinds of heinous things with patient care. So, for example, the surgeons were scheduling 4 patients every 20 minutes for one physician. There's no way they're going to see 24 patients in 20 minutes. So it turned out that the wait time for these patients was between 2 and 3 hours. So I brought that to their attention. I brought a lot in. Then when I interviewed with this man, my instinct lights were going off and on, and his energy was terrible. And but I just said, I have to have this job. I'm a single mother. I got to have this money. So anyway, we probably had 1 or 2 months of kindness and collaboration, and then everything went straight to hell after that. So for the next 3 years, we battled, we fought, and then I noticed he started going into my subordinates' offices and getting dirt on Karen. And so finally, one day, and a few of the surgeons said, Karen, he's going to fire you. And I said, he won't fire me because I'm in my 50s. And that's, I'm an at-risk group, for a woman in her 50s. But anyway, he called me in one day and he fired me. And he took all of my stuff out of my office and put it in the hallway and stacked it up and said, you can't go back to your office. So anyway, it was a pretty heinous thing. And my big learning about all that, which is why you're going to get to talk about your intuition types, is to pay attention to your intuition, because you can get yourself into some pretty bad trouble if you don't. So I did, and it was a horrific lesson, but turned out okay because I was recruited to my next job, which was a wonderful job for 7 years. So that was all good, but it was hellish there for about 4 years. Just saying. Anybody else have a story they want to tell? All righty. Well, we're just going to go on. There's a lot of stories in this group, so we're going to have fun together. So thank you for your stories, and we're going to go ahead and finish this up. So we're going to talk about the 5 types of intuition. So they are clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairalience. And so we all have at least one, probably multiple. I've had some students that had all of them. And so just to talk about that briefly, you all might want to take a picture of this while we're talking, because when we break you out to groups, you're going to have to identify which type you are. So clairvoyance is when you see an image of someone else's face or in a daydream, okay? Clairaudience is that you sense frequencies, resonances, and vibrations within you, and you might hear a voice from someone not physically present. Clairsentience means you're feeling emotions of someone near you, or you feel a sense to help someone. Claircognizance is the intuitive act of clear knowing. So have you ever walked into a patient room and you knew that something dreadful was about to happen, or they were going to cross over or die? And clairalience means that you're able to detect aromas as they filter in from the spirit world. So in our work or in our homes, in our lives, we all are blessed with intuition, and sometimes at early ages, we are told by our parents or caregivers that we're crazy and we don't have those inner knowings, but some of us have all or some or few. So what I'd like to do is break you into, again, a small group. I'll put this back on so you can have it on your phone. And Mark, could you break us into a breakout group?
I don't have that option, Karen. I
Okay.
think you have to enable it at zoom.com. It's not there.
Okay,
on the
well,
web.
what I'll do, I think I can do that at the break, but what we'll do is we will just go ahead and share those types together. And then the second hour, I will work on that at break to get our breakout group. So does anybody want to talk about yes, Luann, your intuition type?
So this, you brought to my remembrance, your story, helped me remember an incident. So my husband wanted me to take a job. This was a different job that was outside of my wheelhouse. It was more of an administrative job, being on the clinical side and working at the bedside my entire career. I was very interested in stroke care, and I applied for a stroke coordinator job over 7 hospitals. I got the job. At least I went through the interview process. During the interview, I would say, what type would it be? It would be Clara, you're cognizant that that the person that is going to be your boss. It's not going to work. It's not going to be a good fit. And I ignored that because I thought, well, I'm being very judgmental. I haven't given this person a chance, and that's no. But though that skill was something that kept my patients alive. I never ignored that at the bedside. But for whatever reason, I decided this time that I basically did self-talk and said, you're just being critical and negative, and you're going to give him a chance. And so after the interview, he called a week later and asked me if I wanted the job. And inside my voice was screaming, no. And I said, yes. And I only lasted 6 weeks because he turned out to be, so now this is very judgmental, but he was more like a corporate psychopath. And he told me I was going to be operating in a job that I did not interview for, which was basically an investigator through the county to investigate paramedics that had screwed up and that had nothing to do with what I had interviewed for. And so on the day that he decided to fire me was my birthday, and it was a big drama thing. Nobody in the office knew he was going to do it, but I had this, this sick feeling in my stomach. So I kept all of my belongings and the things that were mine in a portable file, ready to go. At least I paid attention to that. But he came in and did the firing thing, handed me the letter, and was kind of the growly guy. And I just said, okay, there you go, Luann. That's your own fault. I have no one else to blame but myself. So there we go.
Wow.
You must listen to that voice.
Amen to that. Anybody else have an intuition story?
I have a clarification question.
Yes.
The one that you said, like they sense vibrations and energy, but it also says you hear like words or voices. What if you don't hear words or voices and you just sense like if someone's a good person or a bad person, or if they have positive energy or negative energy, does that count as that type or no?
I'd say it counts. I'd say it counts. You got to pay attention, right, Sabrina?
Yeah. I feel like I have that. Like one of my friends always jokes because like even when she introduced me not that long ago, she's like, "This is Sabrina." She was like, "She also senses energy." And I was like, it's a weird way to introduce me to somebody, but I was like, "But yes." And the friend she introduced me to, she was like, "See, you knew they would have good energy and that we would get along." I was like, "Well, that's true, actually." Yeah. But I don't like hear voices. I mean, I would probably take meds for that if I did, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And Sonia, you have your hand up. And I think you might be muted.
Yeah. Okay. I finally got it to work. All right. Well, I guess I experience each one of those in a different way at different times. But even like with my job, whenever I was going to be fired, it was like 2 days before I was going to be fired. I just had a dream, and all it said was, "You're going to be fired." And so I had messaged my cousin and I said, "Hey, I think I'm going to be fired." And she's like, "No, there's no way they can fire you." She said, "You're a pillar at the facility. There's no way." And I had already started taking all my things home from my office because I was like, well, I'm just going to take it home just in case, And lo and behold, it was right after I did my cultural awareness presentation. And that's when they fired me, was right after I gave my presentation. So I was like, I already know where you're taking me because I know what this office is and what it means. But yeah, it was just, and I just asked them, I said, well, can I ask why? And they said, no, we don't have to justify anything to you. So I said, okay. I said, all right. So whenever I left and I walked out that facility, I had this big weight just lifted off of me. And that felt like the first time I could take a deep breath and just breathe. And I just felt like the breath of life came back into me as soon as I walked out of that building. And some of my coworkers, one of them, she walked out with me and she was just crying because she was like, Sonia, I can't believe this is happening. And I had to console her because I was like, no, I'm fine. I said, really, I'm fine. I said, because I feel like I'm supposed to be on a different path. And that's how I felt since I've been at this new job, because it's like I'm home there. So I just truly believe everything happens for a reason, and those intuitions. I mean, even whenever I worked in ICU, I could tell when we were going to lose a patient, and I always called the family, gave them enough time to get there. But it was just something that I could sense and feel with our patients. But yeah, it's just something I experienced with each one of them.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you. Yes, Matthew, what about you?
So it's funny, I always think of myself as an empath, and that's always been my thing. And I've even done more research because I think I'm a Cigna empath. It's even different. It's somehow I can do it. I can usually walk in rooms, and that's always been my superpower. And I just don't talk about it, but people are anyway. But I realize that sometimes, we've said, we float between these things. We all have these pieces. And when I worked in in-hospital hospice, there was one time when I had 3 people die at once. They, like in hospice, sometimes that happens. This magic happens, like this door opens and people go at once. So I was going room to room to room pronouncing people. And there was something in your writing. I'd love to get a copy of that. I need to take a picture of it or something about, where you actually feel the spirits. And when I first saw that, I was like, no, that's not me at all. But in those moments of doors opening and doors closing, when babies come in and people go out, yeah, that is there. I felt that. And especially when it happens in thirds, and all this whole room, this whole ward is leaving together in their own rooms. It made a big impression on me.
Awesome. What a great story. Thank you, Matthew. And Lisa Seeds, what about you? You've got your hand raised.
I've always kind of felt an aura. Sometimes you walk in the room and you feel something pressing, and then, or other times you feel openness and light, and it's been that kind of a thing for me. And sometimes I'll go into a patient's room and, the nurses will say, oh, this patient's just being difficult, or, they're not listening. And, and I'll go in and I seem to be able to calm them and talk to them and get to the bottom of it. And sometimes it's just based on how I feel when I walk into the room. And it seems to be a big deal. I mean, I can go into a room. I work in the OR, and I've been a nurse supervisor for the hospital. But I can go into any room and almost feel the vibe, as it were. It's a definite situation where sometimes when you walk in, you're like, oh no, I don't. And then other times you walk in and you say, you know what, somebody needs some help. But I've been in rooms where patients and like Matthew was saying, sometimes you go in and that they're done. They're just tired. They're ready to go. And so you just go lay a hand on them and tell them it's okay. It's okay, to do whatever it is that they feel like they need to do. They need to fight, you'll help them fight. If they need to go, you'll go. So it's just, yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I could even do it with my family when, I could tell things are at odds. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Anybody else want to share a story about their intuition? I'll tell you one other story for me. So when I was working in that rehab unit and I was really frightened And I was getting my hair cut one day, and this man said, "You have to go see this psychic who's coming to town, Karen. Her name is Ethel. And but you got to get on the wait list because you'll never get in. You'll never get in." So I said, "Ooh, I want to go see her." So I put my name on, and when I got to the store, they said, "Oh, you're never going to get on. You're like 50 something." So anyway, I went on to work, and 2 weeks later, the place called me from work. I was in my office at the hospital, and they said, "Ethel wants to see you today at 11 o'clock." And I had jumped all these people, so I didn't understand. And I went in to see her, and she said, she said this prayer. I have it hanging up in my, here, I'm in my healing room. She said, "This is the prayer you should always say, Karen. I come into the garden, Lord. Use me, help me in whatever way that not only serves me, but those I serve." And she said, "And you have a guide named Isabel, and she's been with you your whole life, and she's been working with you to get in touch with you, and you will not acknowledge her. Her name is Isabel." So, and before that all happened, I smelled a perfume, like it was musky perfume in my house. I had had a bad accident, a bike wreck, and I was sitting up in my chair and I couldn't breathe very well. And I smelled this smell coming in. And I was watching television. I said, "Why is that here?" And then it kept going and going. And I turned the TV off and I said, "Does somebody want me in here?" And then it was just huge. So then I just turned the TV off and said, "What do you want?" And apparently it was her. And then I put this healing room on my house, and we come in here and meditate. Greg and I do, but there are many days when all of a sudden I come in here and the smell is very pervasive, and the lights go on and off in this room. So I've learned that I have 5 guides and angels, and so that's called clairalience, being able to smell. So I just want to say we're all gifted with intuition of some kind, and it's a very sacred thing to pay attention to. Any other stories before we go to break? All right. Well, thank you for your powerful stories. It was great to hear from all of you. So it is about 8:14. So we're going to come back about 8:20. So we get 6 whole minutes. Okay. See you in a little bit.
Karen, can you make me co-host so I can pause and do
Yes, definitely.
co-host features?
Why don't I just make you host and see if you can put us into,
I can't do it in Zoom. You have to go to the zoom.us on the web portal and change it in there.
all right, that's okay. Well, I
And
just
Karen, I'm gonna log back in on my laptop if I may.
you confused.
Yeah, it's good to be curious. I'll be curious.
It is. It is. All right, so it's 8:21, so I think we'll get back, and I'm going to try my best to finish all this up. Let's see. We talked about that. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about who's on your healing team. So when you go out into private practice, you're on your own, but I like to call them satellite people, all in my orbit, who are helping me do my great work. And I also call them, they're my healing team. So just wanted to show you a graphic of who is on my healing team. And at this tender age, at this tender time after working in healthcare for so long, I've decided I only want to be with people who are grounded and pretty darn loving. So the people that I have in my life are all grounded and loving. And that includes people like your home repair person. Of course, my beloved Greg, my husband. I do have 2 intuitives I work with. I have a great intuitive physician. I'm going to have a naturopathic physician come and speak to you all in 2 weeks who's awesome. And she's very intuitive, but she's also a very skilled, amazing naturopathic physician. I have an incredible, grounded a psychotherapist who is also trained as a shaman. My massage therapist is wonderful. I have an account. You know, sometimes you run into these people in your life and they say, you know, all I ever really wanted to do is do people's taxes because I love it so much. So I have a woman, a friend, a fabulous accountant, and her joy in life is doing taxes, no kidding. And then I have a great chiropractor. I have an incredible acupuncturist. You'll get to hear him. His name is Jeremy Noble. He was a nurse and he was a critical care nurse, and then he was a Marine and he was on battleships and trained in warfare and became an acupuncturist. He is amazing, man. I have a physical therapist. I have a foot physical therapist, and people in our city call her the foot whisperer. Okay. My hair person and my attorney is gentle and kind. My yard people, my attorney, my doggy, my teachers, my plumbers, my electricians. And then there's Mark, who's a very grounded man. So I just want to say, from a metaphysical point of view, it to support you in this walk in this world, in the material world, it's really great to have people on your healing team who personify that mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial and environmental realm to help you do your great work in this world. So I was going to see now if we can just take a few minutes to ask you all, who are there people on your healing team? And can you share a few things about them? And you can also say the opposite, like you have some people that are in your life and they are exactly opposite of what they should be for you, and that is being kind and caring and loving and nurturing and intuitive and emotionally present. And so that takes a lot of energy when you don't have everyone in your healing team. Does that make sense?
Well, I can share, I have, in my whole life, I've had kind of a small group of close friends. And some of them, you know, when I look at the longevity, I have two very good friends that are so different. And these people are all so different than each other. If all these people come together at my funeral, they're going to wonder how in the heck were they? Who was I? Because, you know, everybody's so different. But I have three long-term friends that are, one's very spiritual, one is very fundamental in all ways, and one is very analytical, which I'm not. And then my mother, who, you know, I've had a lot of longevity for, my father, who is not. I mean, he's there, but they just pulled up to my house. I'm watching him on my camera. So they made it in from Denver to Albuquerque, and I'm in Santa Fe. They just beat a storm in. And my mother's huge support. My father's just, I don't know what he is. He's along for a ride. So I'm realizing, you know, when I look at yours, is so great. And I was just making a note of, I just wrote get with an arrow, and I need to, you know, get a home repair guy. I need to get some people on board. I need to develop a deeper team so I can do my work.
Yeah, we need that to do our great work.
Mhm.
We do. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. Anybody else want to talk about the members of their healing team?
I I think in the last year, being able to say it's time to part company with the people that are not supportive, not loving, not very connected, that that became important to me it became a very real deal. And so I appreciate what you said. I'd never really thought about that, how much it can derail having people in your circle because you think, and I'm referring to family members, that you feel a duty, I guess that would be the right word, duty and obligated to be available, but I'm not available for the negative energy because with the loss of my husband, I realized I am like going forward. I really need the love, compassion, positive energy, creative energy, because the other will derail. And so that was a huge step to be able to say, to speak my piece and to put that boundary up.
Thank you, Luann, for sharing that. Thank you. Anybody else want to share about who's on their healing team or anything like Luann has said about sometimes we have energy drainers in our fields?
I have a chiropractor I use. Oh, someone else? Oh.
No, you first.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I see a chiropractor. He's been really helpful to me. I was in a bad car accident when I was 18, and they found me hanging upside down by my neck from the shoulder strap of my seatbelt, and I wasn't breathing. So I had like a traumatic brain injury, and it wasn't good. It wasn't a good summer. So my neck really gives me a lot of problems. So I'm thankful for my chiropractor. And I do see a woman for craniosacral therapy too. She's a godsend. And I also see someone for structural integration. So that triad, they're very helpful, like with my physical being. And I think like emotional and like spiritual too, the cranial work is really good stuff. So and my hairdresser too is awesome. I like her. You have to be very particular about obviously I don't do anything with the color anymore, but I just like in that person that I like to do my hair, so that's my input.
So Sabrina wants to know, what is a structural therapist? I think.
Well, it started from a woman named Ida Rolf, if you've ever heard of Rolfing. And then there was some offsprings of that that turned into structural integration. What it is the practitioner will watch the way you walk and stand and hold they can see your posture, your body movements, and they can tell where you have fascial restrictions. And so they can go in and manually, it can be pretty deep and painful, but the results are worth it. It helps you stand up straighter. It helps you have a better relationship with gravity. And so instead of being, slouched and feeling like you're pulled down, or I have some scoliosis too, so that with the head trauma is kind of throwing me. So these things really help keep me in alignment. Yeah. And I have a person I do speak with on the phone once in a while. He's kind of like an energy coach type guy. Yeah, he's awesome too. So yeah, those are my people.
Lisa. And I think, was it Lisa Seeds that you had your hand up?
So mine's a little weird. My dad was a huge factor in my very young life. And I still play back in my head the things that he would say and how he would act and what I would expect him to expect of me. And my grandmother, my mom's mom, was also similar to that. And I still rely on them, even though that they're gone, about the teachings that they gave me. I also, I've got lots of friends. They're all over the place. Some in California, some in New York. It's just, they're just all around. And I still talk to all of them. I'm not a big social butterfly. It sounds like I might be, but I'm not. But I rely on my past dealings with my family, or certain members of my family, as well as the people that I come in contact with now. And there's nobody that I think that I've come in contact with that hasn't had some impact on me. But that's how I feel about it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else before we move on? Thank you yes, go ahead, Sonia.
I'm always going to have a comment or something to share, always, just so you know. But no, for me, because I have my other organization, the Regalia Making Relatives organization, and it's like we're all like-minded people because we're all trying to heal from historical trauma. So there's like different times when we need different things. And so for us, we're just a small community that can reach out to one another. I know that there's a men's group that my husband's a part of, and whenever, one of the men in the group's having a hard time, they'll reach out to each other. Then we also have a women's group as well. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like I'm surrounded by a lot of people that support me and the causes that we're doing and that we're working with. And then I have a very good support team at work. And it's ironic because there's 4 of us, and all 4 of us were all fired from the same facility. So we all ended up over here, and we all love it because it's more like us, because it's more of a community atmosphere, and that's what we always wanted. And they're also big advocates for our Native patients as well. So yeah, it's just amazing how everything's worked out. But yeah, I'm very fortunate.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing. All right, anyone else want to share before we move on? All right, we're going to move on to finishing up this, and I think we're going to ask you for your Nurse Practice Act. I'm just going to ask you to cite 2 provisions from your Nurse Practice Act next week, and we will check in as your 2 provisions. And the reason I'm asking you to do this, a lot of people have never looked at their Nurse Practice Act. I've had students in the past who they couldn't find it. So if you can't find it, let me know and we will both go search for it, okay? So if you can just bring 2 provisions from your Nurse Practice Act for next week. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this particular presentation, and I'm going to go to this one. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about advocating for loved ones in the hospital. All of you are going to get these questions because when you're an advocate, people are in desperate situations in hospitals. So I am going to, see if I can share. I'm going to maximize the screen, and I'm trying to see if I can find this. I'm just having kind of an interesting experience with my computer tonight because I can't really share the entire screen. So you're just going to have to look at this for a minute. We've already talked about the Mayo Clinic, so I'm going to go through that. This is what a room looked like in this little critical access hospital. It was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, with floor to ceiling windows to look out into nature. So all of us, has anyone in this group has not worked in a hospital? Has everyone worked in a hospital? Okay. So I'm going to be telling things you already know, but just to pay attention to now because things are much squirrely in 2024. We have RN and CNA nursing staff. We have unit secretaries. We are concerned about RN to patient ratios. We know hospitals are like different planets in a different solar system. We are having tremendous nursing shortages and CNA shortages, pharmacist shortages. We know that hospitals are subcontracting out hospitalists and they are contract employees. We know that for-profit hospitals are buying up lots of not-for-profit hospitals. Hospitals are going out of business. And then we have regulatory agencies. And so if you look at the hospital like a solar system, each nurse is a separate planet. And all of us know that every unit in the hospital is a different planet. It's run differently. You have different staff, et cetera, et cetera. So I made a graphic for people, for patients and families who think that every single nursing unit runs the same, but no, it does not. And then each nursing unit as a planet has different unit directors, nurses, CNAs, et cetera. And then all of the hands that are touching our case, I think I got up to about 300 sets of hands. If you think about all the people that are in your chart, collecting data from lab and radiology and respiratory therapy and physicians and PAs and nurse practitioners, there's a lot of people with their hands in your chart. So we know we are having the worst nursing shortage we've ever had in our career. And the National Council of State Boards of Nursing has shown that we've lost 100,000 RNs in the last 2 years due to stress and burnout, and that it's projected that they're saying we're going to lose another 610,000 in the next 3 years. And we know that COVID had a significant, horrific impact on nurses, and we have a big problem with addressing burnout and stress. And then if that's not bad enough, we have CNAs making between $10 and $15 an hour. And you can pull up to an intersection and Arby's or Wendy's is hiring people for $20. So CNAs are not going to stay in a hospital. We've already talked about the 5 types of errors in hospitals. I'm not going to talk about that, but just to emphasize that 80% of all medical errors happen at handoff, which is change of shift report. And we also know that every nurse's worst nightmare is not having enough staff to do the work you're supposed to do. And when those nurse-patient ratios are too demanding, it causes lots of conflict. In a lot of hospitals, we did hourly rounding on the day shift and every 2-hour rounding at nights. We do not have that in our city here in Asheville anymore. We know that nurse-patient ratios are very important and that California is the one place in the country that actually publishes their nurse-patient ratios for 1-to-4 patient med-surg and 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 in critical care. We know that Massachusetts is mandating universal patients nurse staffing also. We have a union in our hospital here, so we're all happy that there is a union, but they have not been able to make a lot of headway with negotiating with HCA, which is Hospital Corporation of America. They own 184 for-profit hospitals in the country, and our hospital system here is the number 2 revenue producer of $1.5 billion in the last year, and we want them to leave. And it's very unpleasant what's going on here in Asheville. So we did have the only hospital in all of North Carolina ratified an agreement with National Nurses Union, NNU, which is the same union that in California. We already know there's not enough CNAs, and we also know that travelers are employed 75% of our hospital, and it's very disarming for a staff nurse to make $40 an hour working alongside a traveler who's making $70 to $100 an hour, or, like I said earlier, $14,000 in a month. So, you will have patients to say, which hospital do I go to? Here at our hospital, another horrific thing, we've had 223 physicians who have left Mission since HCA took over. So we have all kinds of craziness with contract physicians showing up all in every setting. We also have had doctors suing HCA over their practices. Team Health is a contract service that does a lot of very squirrely things with overcharging patients. There's a lawsuit about that. So in our region, we have 4 hospitals, and where would we go? And just a cautionary tale that Leapfrog and is one of the alleged hospital raters that will rate a hospital from A to D, and the Joint Commission will do it also. And then we have CMS coming in and doing inspections. And then this is the landing page for Mission Health. And then you will see that Mission is a level 2 trauma center and has extremely big breadth and depth of services for cardiac and neuro and trauma. And then this is some more metrics, but Leapfrog gave them an A. And then when you drill down, you see that they're down here in the danger zone with communication with doctors, communication with nurses, and responsiveness of hospital staff. And then we learn that health grades and Leapfrog are services that the hospital can purchase. So they're being paid by these hospitals, and it's no surprising that they all get very good ratings. So you can see here that Mission got a score of B, but they had opportunities for improvement on several areas here. Let's see here. And then we have another hospital called Pardee, and they also got an A for Leapfrog. And they have a lot of different services. Advent Health is another hospital we have here. And they also, on their website, say they've gotten an A from Leapfrog. So what is one supposed to do when you have all these things going on? So not reading you all this, but we have an independent news organization that has moved into town here, which is the best thing since sliced bread. And they have previous publishers and owners of newspapers all over the country that have converged here and saying, we have to do something for this community so they can get increased reporting. So they did an article on who rates the raters. And what they found is that here, this red bar, Mission pays Health Grades, and Health Grades is owned by Red Ventures, a giant media company based in Indian Land, South Carolina, that also owns Bankrate, The Points Guy, and Lonely Planet. And they are paid to rate your hospital. So, of course, they're not rational. And then this is more about health grades down here also. So it's very alarming, and consumers beware about all that. So I just want to mention that we have a great rehab hospital here. There's something called, we talked about Medicare.gov/nursing home compare. It's also for hospitals. So for hospitals, it's Medicare.gov care. It's care compare. And you can do the same thing. You can go and look up hospital ratings. And the one that you can finally see what's going on is, this is the federal government. So they've only given Mission 2 stars for patient services. And over here with the VA, they've got 5 stars. And then for Party, which is not-for-profit, state-run hospitals, 4 stars for patient satisfaction, and Advent Health is 4 stars. And then this is Novant. This is a big not-for-profit system in North Carolina. They own about 6 hospitals, so they have 3 stars for patient satisfaction. And then we have this incredible Facebook group that this man named Will Overfelt started, and he's going to come and speak to you, but he decided he would start a giant Facebook group. It was originally called Mission Maladies, and now it's called Mountain Maladies. But a lot of people go in here and write reviews about all of the patients' horrible things that have gone on and that people want them to know about. So he now has 15,000 people who write stories about our hospitals. So this is a few slides on 12 patients as advocacy strategies for a more comfortable stay for your hospital. So I give this website out to a lot of my patients, and it's broken down to before you're admitted, why you're admitted, and being discharged home. So this is before you're admitted. So make sure that you become an expert on yourself before you go to the hospital. So you should know what your normal lab work is, what are your vital signs, and what's going on with diseases, and what are your meds. And you can look all those things up, and you can help your patients look them up. So I always refer people to Mayo Clinic and, to do the same thing about finding out how much a procedure costs. And this is another one. And then to bring to the hospital the following things: a pen and a paper and a journal. We have dry erase boards in all of the rooms, but can you ever find a dry erase marker? Absolutely not. So I tell patients to bring a couple dry erase markers so we can write on them, and then to bring bleach wipes and hand sanitizer, soaps, washcloths, paper towels, lip balm, and toothpaste and toothbrush, because we can't get those anymore in our hospital. And then in terms of bringing food, snacks, and eating utensils, I had a patient who went to surgery, didn't have anything to eat, and then wanted something to eat the next day. She was also a diabetic, and her breakfast came at 9:30 in the morning, and they gave it to her, but she said there's no utensils. So the nurse went to the nursing station to find something to eat with. She came back and she said, "I'm sorry, we have nothing to use." And she ate her breakfast with her hands. So it's kind of a good idea to have some utensils with you. And of course, who's your emergency contact? Good to have your list of meds. Different healthcare organizations all have different authorization for release of healthcare information. So it's good to have this completed before you go in the hospital. Who do you want to be able to talk to your nurse or your doctor about your care? These are different forms. HCA Mission is a very complex form. So when I work with people, I always go through this form with them, and we sign that. Things to leave at home are cash, wallet, jewelry, and teeth. I can't tell you the number of people I've had who put their teeth, where they put their teeth in at night, a Kleenex, or maybe they might have one of those cups, but they put their teeth in a Kleenex. And what do people come in and do? They throw the Kleenex away. Then if you are overwhelmed, to bring a patient advocate with you, or someone like a spouse or a family member or a neighbor. It's helpful if they have healthcare experience. And then when you're admitted, so things to include during your admission, when you come in for surgery, for example, on that day, get your mobile phone numbers of people you want them to have those numbers, and to complete a hospital authorization for release of healthcare info. And it's really important to ask questions. And if you don't feel like asking questions, to make sure you have someone who can. You have the right to be informed, you have the right to take notes, and don't be afraid to ask for questions. Don't be a crab because staff is very stressed out. It does not help if you're angry and frustrated. So this is during your stay. So it's important to bring your iPhone, make sure you have a long cord, because you remember some hospitals have the old head wall in the back of the bed, so you have to stretch the extension cord for your phone from the back of your bed to to the front of you, and lots of our charging cords aren't that long. So this is about patient access. I'm not going to go through this. This is, we already know Mayo Clinic's great. Learn the right person to call when you need help. Sometimes I had a patient, all the hospital beds have alarms on the inner aspect of the side rail. And in one case, a patient's side rail alarms were not working, so she couldn't call. But you can call with your phone. So I always make sure that my patients know the hospital operator number before they go in. So if something happens with their call light in their room, they can still reach someone. The other thing is about patient alarms. So we know hospitals are very busy and they're very loud, and we have cardiac monitors, and these are infusion device monitors, and then we have heart rate and oxygen saturation monitors. Good to know that. And then make sure you know how to use the hospital bed call button or the pillow speaker. So on the inside, on the inner aspect of the side rails on both sides, the red cross denotes the call nurse. And here it is again on another side. This is what's called a pillow speaker. And a lot of us know this is the one that also controls the on-off button of the TV and the volumes. So one of the strategies I use with my patients when things are not going well is to ask for a patient care conference. I will tell you the staff does not like this, and neither does the case manager. They're all understaffed, but we have to do this, especially so a patient that I had have a total hip replacement, elderly, frail, and they said she's going to go to rehab, and then they tell me that they've only sending her to places that have 1 or 2 stars as a facility, and I have to say nope, she's not going there. What do you mean she's not going there? I said she's not going there. Why isn't she going there? I said, have you looked at her ratings on Nursing Home Compare? And so it turns out the case managers are really overworked. They're really busy. We have many vacancies in our hospitals with case managers. So the ones they only have time to send an email out to these facilities. And the ones, who do you think are going to call back to say they have beds? The ones with 1 to 2 stars, because nobody wants to go there. So what you or I have to do is we have to make the calls to other 4 or 5-star facilities, talk to the admissions coordinator and say, I have this patient, Sonia Frazier, and she's broken her hip and she needs a rehab bed. And do you have any potential discharges? Well, yes, Karen, we do. We have a discharge coming up tomorrow. Well, let's get that FL2 completed and let's see if she can have that bed and what kind of insurance does she have. So working behind the scenes on the back end is a great strategy to get people placed into safe, skilled facilities. And that is achieved by having a patient care conference. So I have to ask to speak to the case manager, the charge nurse, the primary nurse, and the doctor. They are not happy with that. And then I say, I'm sorry, they're not going home and they're not going out of this building until I have a patient care conference. So it can be quite testy, but after we have the conference, they understand that I'm trying to look out for the best interest of the patient. Do you know what I'm saying? After discharge. So sometimes the stay has been chaotic and awful. In the state of North Carolina, we have the Department of Health Service Regulation every state has one of these, or the Department of Health and Human Services reports to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid go up through the Inspector General. Inspector General goes to the Justice Department. So in our state, we have a 1-800 number, and I encourage my patients and families to call there if their care at the hospital is substandard and awful, which it has been. And I call, lots of us use this 1-800 number, so there must be that number for you in your state. And then advocating for hospitalized patients, it's really important to have that second person. If you're going to have surgery, or if you're not feeling well, if you're septic or whatever, it's good to be able to document what's happening in a journal. And then this was a patient story. I'm trying to pay attention to our time. I can probably just say that this was a true patient story. She had surgery to remove her toe. She had diabetes. She was NPO after midnight until she went into the hospital at 5 o'clock in the morning. Her surgery was delayed because they had too many emergencies. She didn't come back from surgery till 8 o'clock at night. Her call bell didn't work. No one was available for 2 days to help her walk. A friend had to bring a walker in to get her a walker. Her room was cold. She asked to be moved to a different room. She had to ask for everything, including food and water. And when she told the nurse she wanted a snack, the nurse said, "Well, you have diabetes. You're not allowed for snacks." She was returned to a warmer room. She had to ask for washcloths and towels. A lot of you know that hospitals are doing away with towels and washcloths, and now they give you this little packet of wipes. It's unbelievable. She's cold. They didn't have blankets. And then, a doctor came into her room and said, "Mrs. Smith," and she said, "No, my name's Mrs. Brown." So anyway, I'm just saying it's really important to be prepared to take care of your patients that are in the hospital. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. I hope you all don't have hospitals like we have in Asheville right now. Let's see, there's 4 things. Let's see. Let's see. What is, we talked about that. Smart about the dry erase markers. Why do all the blonde nurses carry red dry erase markers? I don't know, joke. Let's see. In case they have to draw blood. Okay. All right. So other questions. Can you think of anything else that you guys want to know about with all this I've just shared with you pretty quickly? You will get hospitalized patients as our inpatient advocates. You just will. Anything else? Well, then why don't we do our takeaways for the night, unless you all have any questions. So I'm going to walk over here and I'm going to write down your takeaways. All right. So Lisa, no wiki, tell me what your takeaways for tonight are.
Well, I guess just there's patients that need advocating, especially in hospitals, that's for sure. And it's good to know our styles of intuition so that we can pick up on things and situations, maybe sidestep some situations that aren't good for us, listening to the stories of you guys. Luann, trying to, just, that's it. That's all I
Thank
got.
you.
Yeah.
It's all good. Okay, Lisa Seeds, what about you?
So I guess there's actually several really good takeaways from here. I mean, we're all working in a very stressed facility area. Hospitals are what we are talking about for the most part, but doctor's offices are actually experiencing a lot of the same types of trauma. You're going into a doctor's office and you're waiting for hours. You know, it takes 6 months to get a physical in. It takes, you know, a week or more just to see for a sick visit. By then, you know, what do you do? So lots of people are utilizing hospital emergency rooms and urgent care facilities for, you know, their regular health care, which puts even a bigger strain on what nurses can do for the patients that are actually admitted. I know that our EDs have had patients waiting in the ED for days before we have a bed for them. And they're sick patients, they're ICU level of care patients. And there's just not enough room, there's not enough staff. Even if we do have the rooms, we still don't have enough staff. So just looking at what you've presented to us tonight, it just brings to fruition exactly what we've all been thinking, that we're so understaffed, and you know, these little companies are out there producing nurses that just don't know how to perform.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're mentally or educationally prepared for what they're going into. And I think that that's a huge thing. So
It is,
that's
Lisa.
my-
It is. Thank you. And Liz, what about you?
Well, I feel like I work from home, and I also live in Loveland, which is north of where I'm most familiar and have worked in facilities. So like Boulder and Denver. And so I am now feeling like I don't really have a sense of this community, Loveland, Fort Collins, and what the issues might be. And so I'm considering how I can kind of learn a little bit more about that, and also have a network here and connect with other people that I would then be able to connect patients with. So yeah, just kind of learning my community.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay, Sabrina, what about you?
I was thinking about your presentation on the Phoenix nurses. And I liked the way that you went about it, because you didn't seem like you were trying to be punitive about nursing errors. And instead, you know, we all make mistakes because we're human. But it's really about how you're going to respond to that, and how you're going to learn from it and come back. So I really liked that aspect of it. Because I think that there's a lot of times we talk about the culture of safety in hospitals, and there's not that culture of safety a lot of times, where you feel like you can bring stuff up, or you feel like you have a near miss, and it can be addressed without, you know, throwing someone under the bus or being thrown under the bus. There's a lot of the bus running over people. So I liked that you went over that and how you did that, and it gives me food for thought.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you. Okay, Matthew, what about you tonight?
Well, to build on that too, yeah, I really love the Phoenix story and the nursing errors. It's so, you know, as a culture, we just tend to bury that kind of stuff, but that is actually where our strengths come from.
Mhm.
And, yeah, I want to thank you for that too, because sometimes we just have to slow down and look at that. And this is supposed to be a culture of using errors not to be punitive, but the truth is they are, and can be really toxic and harsh, and you know, weapons. And so that was really great. Also, the whole piece about honoring our intuitive selves is so relevant for me right now. And I just love to see that that's just mainstream in our little organization here.
Great. Thank you, Matthew.
You,
And Sonia.
Again, it was a great class. It's also healing in a lot of ways, and we're all sharing our healing stories and the things that have shaped us into who we are. But the things that you were saying kind of towards the end of the class about how to advocate for patients and family members, because a lot of the things that you had described about what to bring and what to be prepared for are things that I have actually done for a lot of my family members already.
Great.
And, you know, not even realizing how even just a simple shower can make a difference. And I have always asked that whenever I have my parents in the hospital. I'm like, I want to put them in a shower when they're strong enough to get in there. And it's like I become the enemy because I want to put them in a shower. And so I have to explain to them, it's kind of like a cultural thing. I mean, not even necessarily a cultural thing. It's like a healing thing, just to
Yeah.
have that cleansing whenever you get in the shower. And that was something that one of the ICU nurses that trained me, she said to always wash with water, use water because that's like a purifier because that helps to wash away the sickness. And so that's what we would always do whenever we were in ICU. We would take the time to wash our patients that were on the vent, and and miraculously they would always improve. And so, just those simple things like that have been forgotten, in the healthcare system. And those are the things that we really need to start thinking about and bringing back. But yes, I did notice that whenever they would only give me the package of body wipes to, wash them, and I'm like, this isn't going to work. So yes, I can see all of that now, but thank you.
You're welcome. And Mark, what about you?
I'm super impressed about the Nurse Practice Act, and look forward to hearing from the team on, the diversity of findings on that, the ahas that come around as a result of it. And I suspect it will do nothing but build your confidence as you have that dialogue with, future clients.
Thanks, Mark. So it's very good to be with you all. Next week, we are going to have a man named Gary Heisey, and we're going to dip our feet now intermittently and more as we go along about starting your own business. He's going to teach us about a one-page business plan. So a lot of you might have heard about a business plan and you go, oh, gross me out. Who wants to do a business plan? Why should I care? Do I have to? Is it going to be meaningful? So he is a very excellent teacher and you're going to really enjoy him. So he'll be here for our first hour. And my second hour, I have two speakers that may be coming. So I'm not going to say who they are yet, but I think I told you about this, that we have about 21 speakers during this course. So it's a parade of wonderful people to give you their wisdom and love and attention as you make this thoughtful decision to go into private practice as a holistic or inpatient advocate. So anyway, lots of good things coming up on the 27th. We do have a national expert on malpractice insurance. So I'm pleased as punch to get her. I've been trying for 7 cohorts to get a malpractice expert in this class. And finally, the universe has said, here is someone, Karen Sanders. So yay. So we're going to have a great malpractice person. And then we'll probably have a naturopathic physician about the first week in April. So that's just trying to give you three weeks ahead of time about what's coming. So any last questions before we close up for the night? Oh, goody, we have 3 minutes early. Okay. All right. I hope you all have a beautiful week. I can't wait to hear your findings about 2 things in your Nurse Practice Act. And I pray that every one of you can find your Nurse Practice Act, and don't put yourself down if you can't find it. Sometimes states have it hidden up all up into the economy department, you know. It's located in weird places, so we'll find out, okay? And please give me a call. Oh, one last thing. So I want us to think about a hand signal when we close at nighttime. And so we've had some pretty hilarious hand signals. And so would you all like to tackle the issue of hand signals next week, or do you feel up to doing it now? Takes probably around 10 minutes because we have to go around the room and people show us their hand signals, and then we have to vote on the one we want.
Let us think on it.
Hmm?
Let us think on it so we
All
have.
right, you think on it. All right. And it's very hilarious to see everybody doing the hand signal at the end of the class. I have to say, it's hilarious. Okay. All right. Well, listen, you all have a good night, and call me if you need something. I'll see you next Wednesday. Okay. You guys have a good night. Bye. Night, night.
Bye.
Bye.
Karen, can I still ask you a question?
Of course you can.